Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo. There is a lot to talk about today. It seems like this Philadelphia Eagles team is turning into a soap opera every single day with more things to talk about. Yesterday, A.J. Brown finally breaks his silence and speaks to the media for about 12, 13 minutes at his locker. So I want to get into that. He said a lot. Some of it good, some of it bad. Overall, I thought he did a nice job, but we'll talk about it. The NFL also releases their Pro Bowl rosters. For those of you who still care about the Pro Bowl, they don't even call it the Pro Bowl anymore. The Pro Bowl games. But it's almost like everybody makes the Pro Bowl these days. What I care more about is the All-Pro list. That's the list that really matters. But we'll talk a little bit about that. And then later on in the show, we will be joined, like we are every Thursday, our Thursdays with Farzy. Mark Farzetta will be joining the show. So I want to talk to him a little bit about A.J. Brown, this Philadelphia Eagles team. What the hell is going on? But it should be good. Should be a good show. We are live here on the JAKIB Sports Network on YouTube. We are also streaming live on TikTok. For the TikTok crew, if you want to see the interview with Mark Farzetta later on in the show, I'll let you know you're going to sign off and join the JAKIB Sports Network on YouTube for that interview. But let's get a little roll call in the chat from my Power Hour crew. I got Bill Ray here nice and early. Wine Niners Wine back in the house. Wine Niners Wine, I was looking for you yesterday, man. We were doing some Flyers talk. We were talking about that tough game against the Edmonton Oilers and how good Connor McDavid is. I don't think you were here yesterday, my brother. So it's good to see you. WCBJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the house. Thank Kelly Green Burrito saying AJ gained more respect from me. We'll talk about it. David Laprati, Jason A-Team, Barbara Carroll. I usually don't wear a hat, Barbara. You're right. I don't know. I threw the hat on today. Was feeling the hat today. 215 J Philly in the house. Flexin and Steppin in the house. And Wine Niners Wine. You got to have priorities, man. Work is busy. The Power Hour or work? I think it's the Power Hour every time. What do you think? 700 level veteran in the house. Big D in the house. So we're going to try something a little bit different today. And if it doesn't work, we'll nix it. But I'm going to try to play some of these clips from A.J. Brown so that we can talk about it, because he spoke for about 13 minutes yesterday. And some of it got posted on social media. So I'm going to pull some stuff from Twitter, let you guys hear it if you haven't already heard it, and then we can talk about it. For those of you on TikTok, you won't be able to hear the clips, but you'll know what we're talking about. So let's first take a look at why he said he hadn't been speaking to the media. So let's give this a shot. This will be the first time we try to play some clips. So if we have technical difficulties, that's what's going on. But let's see. So this is why he said he didn't want to speak to the media.
Honestly, the reason why I didn't speak to the media after the game because I didn't want to be negative. I had already transitioned to the mindset where we were going through a tough time. And so me personally, the person I am, who just know I just have to go back to work, and ain't nothing I could do about it, and like I said after the game, I said I was raised. If I had nothing nice to say, I'm not going to say nothing at all. So I'm not just about to continue to compound the negative with the negative. So you guys can write more negative stuff. Like, you guys watch the game too, you know what I'm saying? So, like, you guys already know. So that's why I was like, there's nothing more that I can say you know, I'm not trying to make it worse than what it is. And so, you know, and then on top of that, you know, everything that I do, if I say something, I do anything, I'm classified as a monster, you know, honestly, you know, and it's honestly the opposite. You know, you saw my frustration on the field. It wasn't about the play call. It wasn't about none of that. It was about my guy getting banged up.
So a lot to unpack there. For those of you guys on TikTok, so basically what he's saying is the reason why he wasn't talking to the media was because he didn't want to compound the negative with more negative. Now, let me first say, I thought that A.J. Brown came off very likable yesterday, very believable. And I was happy that he chose to finally open up and speak to the media. But here's my problem with A.J. What he says right there is, I didn't want to compound the negative with the negative. So that's why I chose not to speak to the media. But here's my problem. A.J. Brown is a captain on the Philadelphia Eagles. We need our captain's voice when things aren't going good, when you are battling adversity. Not when you're winning. It's easy to get in front of the cameras and talk to the media when your team is winning every single football game. Last year, when they basically just blew through this schedule, yeah, it was easy to be a leader. Really easy to be a leader, to go up in front of the media when everything's great. But you need your captains in moments when things aren't great. You don't just want a captain that's able to guide the ship through calm waters. You want that captain that's able to guide the ship through the choppy waters. And I know people in the chat are saying they don't care about press conferences, to be honest. But here's the problem. Because with A.J. Brown choosing to not speak to the media for as long as he chose to not speak to the media, everybody started forming their own narrative. Right or wrong, this is the way our city is. It's what makes our city so great as well, is that we care so much. Our fans care. The media cares. Everybody cares. And it's the reason why when you win, you will be loved forever. There's a reason why you lay it all out on the field. You will be beloved forever in this town. But at the same time, it can be ruthless. It is a tough town to play in. But that's why I think A.J. Brown, as a captain, needed to speak to the media when things weren't going well. I don't like that answer that I didn't want to compound the negative with the negative. You are a leader on this team. It's your job to guide this team through the adversity. And when he chose not to speak, what you got was everybody creating their own narrative. A.J. Brown's mad at Nick Sirianni. A.J. Brown's mad at Brian Johnson. A.J. Brown doesn't get along with Jalen Hurts. This is what happens. And then it starts to take a life of its own. And now you have your teammates answering for you. And A.J. Brown apologized to his teammates yesterday, which I thought was big, because they did all have to answer for him. Everybody was asking the other guys, why isn't A.J. talking? And that's the problem I had with him not speaking. Now, he did say some good things. One of the things he talked about was that play at the end of the Seattle game, when he talked about the play where Jalen Hurts needed about 13 yards to get into range for a Jake Elliott field goal to tie the game, and they dropped back and they threw a deep ball. And after it was intercepted, and after the game, Nick Sirianni said they were trying to get potentially a pass interference call. Well, this was interesting. So this is what he had to say when asked about his relationship with Nick Sirianni, and he brings up that play in the Seattle game. Listen to this.
Like we have a great relationship. Like I said, like I got a ton of respect for Nick. So like I said, he take up for us when it be us, you know. And I even said, for example, I'm gonna get detailed. For example, I know that's what y'all want anyway, but I'm gonna get detailed. Like for the Seattle game, that was on us. Like we messed that up. we improvised and we went on our own. And Nick came out and said, "Oh, I wanted to try to get a flag or something crazy like that." It's like he really made himself look like a fool for us. I have nothing but respect for him. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because not all coaches do that. You know what I'm saying? So like, bro, we rhyme with Nick. We rhyme with Brian. We just got to come out. We just got to play ball. That's all it is. It's just either one person messing up or something like that. And not saying that somebody just trying to mess up, but it happens. We human. You know what I'm saying? So like, but like I said, there's highs and lows, and you see the glimpses. So that's why I'm like, are we right there?
So, really interesting. Really interesting. One, let's take the positive here. It was good to hear him say he didn't have a problem with Nick. He rides with Nick. He rides with Brian Johnson. But the interesting thing is that he says that in the Seattle game, that was him and Jalen improvising on that play that resulted in the interception, and that it was Nick Sirianni who took the blame to the media, saying they were trying to get a pass interference call. Now, listen, we all know that these NFL coaches lie to the media. We know it happens. But you don't often get it confirmed from a player that, yeah, the coach lied to all of you. Now, listen, I love that Nick Sirianni is going to cover for his players. I do like that. One of the guys who did it better than anybody was Andy Reid. You remember Andy Reid in this town, how much we hated his press conferences because he wouldn't give you anything. Everything was about, we need to do a better job. I need to do a better job. We couldn't stand it. So I do like that Nick Sirianni is going to take the blame for his players. But what I didn't like is that it was confirmed that Nick Sirianni lies to the media, because this was coming on the heels of, on a Tuesday, Nick Sirianni saying, I have complete faith in Sean Desai as my defensive coordinator. And then a few days later, it gets reported by Jay Glazer that they fired Sean Desai as defensive coordinator and named Matt Patricia the DC. So listen, anything Nick Sirianni says, you really can't believe now, because it's been confirmed that he has now lied to us twice in the last 3 weeks. But you expect that. You do expect that. So I do like that Sirianni is willing to take the blame for his players. And I won't play the clip, but AJ was also asked about his relationship with Jalen Hurts. He talked about that there's no problems there. He talked about the reason he was frustrated at the end of the Cardinals game on that screen pass to Kenny Gainwell wasn't because of the play call, but it was because Devontae Smith got hurt on the play, and he knows he's going to need Smitty down the stretch. So this was okay. You know, this was an okay conversation. I thought A.J. Brown did a nice job. I thought it was long past due when you're a captain on this team. You can't go silent, because we create our own narratives, right or wrong. We're going to create our own narratives as media, as fans, and then everybody else is going to have to answer for you. You can't do that as a leader. You can't do that as a captain. But I have a lot of people, a lot of fans on Instagram, and if you're not following me, check me out at Legal Hands to the Face, on Twitter at Bill Colarulo. A lot of people are saying this is going to be the turning point of this season. This is what they needed to bring the locker room together, and now this team is going to bounce back and rally the troops. I'd love to believe that, guys. I want to see this team win a Super Bowl. I love the Eagles just as much as all of you. But this team didn't bounce back and rally the troops after getting dominated by the 49ers. They didn't bounce back and rally the troops after getting dominated by the Dallas Cowboys. They didn't bounce back and rally the troops after giving up a 92-yard drive to a backup quarterback named Drew Lock. So what makes us believe that they're now going to bounce back and rally the troops simply because A.J. Brown said a few good things to the media? I hope I'm wrong, but I can't believe that just that conversation yesterday is going to be what it takes to bounce back. Because regardless of what A.J. Brown says, they still don't have linebackers. They still struggle at safety. They still have James Bradbury playing some of the worst football of his career. So if you're here in the chat, I'm curious what you think. After watching A.J. Brown speak to the media yesterday, has that changed your opinion of what we can expect from this football team going forward? For me, doesn't change anything. I'm happy he spoke. I think he did a nice job speaking. I just don't think it's going to change what this football team is, and they're not a very good football team. They don't have a very good defense. We've talked about why. They don't have great personnel on the defensive side of the football. So I see you guys in the chat saying it's not changing your opinion. Oh, boy. Bill Ray's bringing it today. Bill Ray says, my opinion is this team is a circus and embarrassment. Bill Ray not holding back. Dan Keller Green Burrito says, it doesn't change it, but it's still 0-0 come playoff time. You're right. The record goes back to 0-0 come playoff time. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. And I see Go Sixers in the chat asking if we have Spadaro today. Spadaro was on Tuesday. We're going to be joined after the break by my man, Mark Farzetta. So I want to talk to Mark Farzetta about A.J. Brown. Obviously, we'll talk about what he thinks of this Philadelphia Eagles team, what he thinks they should do in Week 18 against the Giants. There's some people saying they should rest the starters. I don't think they should at all. So we'll talk about it. So, guys, stay tuned. Hit that like button for me. Hit that share button for me. We will be right back with Mark Farzetta. Stay tuned, guys.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Underdog Fantasy has a way for you to play alongside your favorite football team all season long with their fantasy pick'em game. You pick between 2 to 5 players, select whether they'll go higher or lower on one of their stats, then do what you usually do on a Sunday, watch the games. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, and the Sports Betting Show wants you to get involved. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, use the promo code WIN, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Use the promo code WIN.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo. Before the break, we were breaking down A.J. Brown's comments in the locker room, what we thought that was going to do for this Philadelphia Eagles team. But now we're going to be joined like we are every Thursday by my man, Mark Farzetta, the one and only Farzy. What's going on, my brother?
You know, I appreciate you having me on, Bill, so I could finally break my silence of not talking to the media. I think it was I haven't spoken to the media in 2 hours and 21 minutes, so it's good to finally break this silence. And I trust you, so I'm talking to you, man. Thank you.
So we were talking about this. First of all, I see people in the chat during the break saying this is not something that we should be talking about with a quote-unquote Super Bowl team, that we're having locker room issues and whether or not one of the captains is talking to the media. But this is the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So let's first talk about A.J. Brown's comments on why he hadn't been speaking to the media. And basically what he said was he didn't want to compound the negative with more negative. He really didn't have anything positive to say, so he took a step back and didn't say anything. I gave them my thoughts on that, but let me get your thoughts on his reasoning for not speaking to the media.
Well, he certainly raised my eyebrows, and this is not to pat myself on the back, but in the postgame show following the loss to the Cardinals, I didn't get into it necessarily with Mike Missinelli, but my thing was he has nothing nice to say, and he is employing the thumper mentality of if you got nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. I said that, and then I'm watching him yesterday, and he literally says that to the media. Now, I'll say this. You know, he is an emotional guy, and as an emotional guy, and I used to be a lot more emotional in my younger days, you might say things that you regret if you are caught at an emotional time where you're not lying, you're telling the truth, at least your version of it, but you might say something that's a little too top shelf. You might say something that you actually regret, like my offensive play caller is a moron, my coach is an idiot. You might say something that might be taken off kilter even though that you're emotional. That's what he was doing. He was taking a step back. He was winning the battle in terms of he knew that if he did talk, he'd be negative. But if he did talk at an emotional time, he might be more negative than he did originally set out to be. So waiting for this time, I don't blame him. I don't fault him for it. It's a very mature thing. And I think if you're a captain, if you're a leader, you address the situation the way he did. And I applaud him for doing that. I thought everything he had to say was very enlightening. But there was one thing that he said that isn't getting any conversation. It's not getting any traction. I haven't seen anybody tweet about it. I talked about it this morning on the show, but he was asked, like, okay, this is great. He laid out everything for about 10 minutes. And then the last 3 minutes of the press conference or media session, he's 10 minutes of great loyalty, enlightenment, the breath of fresh air, all that stuff. And then somebody asked him, I don't know who it was, but somebody asked him, does everyone in the locker room feel like you feel? You're talking about how it's on the players, it's not on the coaches. Does everybody feel like you feel? And he said, oh, well, I can't speak for everyone. And it's like, okay, so there's some turmoil that's definitely going on in the locker room, but it ain't coming from A.J. Brown at least. And pretty much everything other than that I thought was fantastic. And even that was great because it was honest. But in terms of optimistic feelings about the rest of the season, I think he created a lot of good vibes in that locker room with the way he approached everything.
I want to get more into the substance of what he talked about. But before we do, I want to go back to something you said, that you liked the way he handled this, that he chose to not say something that he would regret, and that's why he didn't speak to the media. So I said the exact opposite before you joined the show. For me, you're a captain on the Philadelphia Eagles football team. We don't need your voice when everything is going well and you keep winning football games. What you need from your captain is in times of adversity to be able to address the negative. And what happened was when he didn't speak to the media, we all created our own narratives, right or wrong, with the media and the fans. Everyone started creating their own narratives. Was A.J. Brown mad at Jalen Hurts? Was he mad at Nick Sirianni? Did he not like Brian Johnson? And then what occurs is now every other player in that locker room has to answer for A.J. Brown, who's supposed to be the leader on this team. So that's what I had a problem with him not speaking. I did think he did a good job yesterday. I just think it was a little too late, Farzy.
Yeah, I think originally it was Shakespeare, and then on this man's birthday, Charlie Manuel, he adopted it himself. Know thyself. And he would always talk about that, I think, with Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard and those guys. Know thyself. Just because you're a leader doesn't mean that you have to make yourself uncomfortable. You are expected to give the best version of yourself. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that the best version of A.J. Brown was not available after the Seattle Seahawks loss, after just squeaking by the Giants and then not being able to get by the Cardinals. I don't think that was the best version. If you're a leader, you need to know yourself first. And if you put yourself in front of the team and say to yourself, okay, if I go out there and I get emotional, that's really going to hurt things. People asking questions is not nearly going to be as bad as what I have to say, even if it's honest, even if it's my own version of the truth. If I say that after a game, it's going to damn the locker room to hell when I might not have really meant it. So I think that's a good thing. I still think it's a good thing, but I see your point. I understand what you're saying. My version of it, my take on it is that the worst version of A.J. Brown would have been the guy talking directly after games.
And you mentioned something there, honest, even if it's the truth. So what I found interesting yesterday was that A.J. Brown confirmed what we've all known for a very long time, that anything Nick Sirianni says is probably not the truth. And he was referring to the Seattle Seahawks, that last play. He said him and Jalen improvised that play. So there's a couple of things I want to ask you about. Number one is they improvised that play. Is that – I wish someone would have asked him to elaborate a little bit more, because was that something they saw at the line of scrimmage, similar to the Washington Commanders game in week 3, where they take the deep shot when really the play was run out the clock? Or was this something where they literally completely improvised on the spot? But it was interesting that he says, and then Nick Sirianni took the blame after, confirming that Sirianni lies to us, which we kind of already knew.
He didn't even just say that Sirianni lied. He said Sirianni made himself look like a fool. And that was like, God, I was like, all right. And he did, because, we might get past, Sirianni did we might get pass interference on that. We might get it there. You might go for pass interference. And I was like, that's stupid. So I listened to A.J. Brown, and when he said that, it reminded me of this kind of quado blame that I like to look at with the Eagles. And when we talk about play calls, this is why I always have an issue with maybe not Brian Johnson, maybe not Nick Sirianni, maybe Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, in terms of what they want to see overall from the team, the way they want to see the team win, and then the way Sirianni, Brian Johnson, and Jalen Hurts have influence on it as well. So obviously, number one, you always want to look at your head coach, especially if it's an offensive-minded head coach and you're having issues with the offense. Then you want to look at the offensive coordinator, especially if he's a guy who's calling plays. But when you talk about those 4 different brackets from the front office to Jalen Hurts with the head coach and coordinator in the middle, you're talking about this all these cooks in the kitchen. And Jalen can change anything he wants at the line of scrimmage. So if you're talking about where the ball ends up, I always put that on the quarterback. If you're talking about the way they line up, I'm looking at Brian Johnson and I'm looking at Nick Sirianni. If I look at pass-happy offense, then I look at the front office. It changes so regularly with every single play. It's annoying. That's why teams like Jacksonville right now, for instance, especially with the offense, Doug Peterson is there to run the show. He's not there to be like the assistant regional manager to Howie Roseman, like a lot of head coaches would be here in Philadelphia. He's not there to be the assistant to Jeffrey Lurie, who likes to meddle in the team's affairs. And he's the owner. He can do whatever the hell he wants. We might not like it, but he's the owner. But there is so much blame to go around. When you get a little morsel of honesty, I think it allows you to look into the window of what goes on in every single play call. And Jalen improvising, A.J. Brown improvising. When else do they do that throughout the year? You bring up a great question about the Commanders game, taking that deep shot to A.J. Brown when they shouldn't have. It is what it is. But then you also look there at the Seattle game. You look earlier in the Seattle game on that 1st and 10 with 8:15 to Quez Watkins when he didn't need it up 4 points in the fourth quarter. Are you serious? That to me is more about the philosophy of the team than it is just Jalen Hurts. But when people really try to nail down where the problem is, that's why after the game, like when you're really trying to nail down where the problem is, it's hard to just look at Nick Sirianni. It's hard to just look at Brian Johnson. It's hard to just look at the quarterback, especially in this particular organization when so much leads directly to the top at the front office with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and all the analytics they want to put into their play calling. So it's very difficult to nail down. And when AJ said that little morsel of truth, I think that let us look through the window a little bit more.
And you mentioned Quez. Let's talk about one positive. After that Seattle game, we haven't seen much of Quez Watkins. Didn't even get an offensive play against the Cardinals. So finally, it appears that Sirianni and the offensive coaching staff have seen what a lot of us have been saying for a long time, that unfortunately Quez just shouldn't be out there.
No.
So, and then they give Julio Jones a shot. It's a shame they ruined the Julio Jones game. This could have gone down as the Julio Jones game.
Yeah, it could have. It could have.
2 TDs. So one more thing, and then I want to get away from this A.J. Brown stuff because I'm sure people are sick and tired of hearing about it. But one of the things he said, too, that wasn't necessarily not true was he was talking about at the end of the Arizona Cardinals game that he looked visibly frustrated on the field, and he wanted it to be known that he wasn't frustrated at the play calling of quarterback draw, screen to Kenny Gainwell with Devontae Smith as your lead blocker. He wasn't frustrated at that. He was just frustrated that Devontae Smith got hurt. And I'm sure he was frustrated that Smith got hurt. But his reasoning about why he wasn't frustrated with the play that was called was because every play, if they blocked the right people, it would have been successful. On the Jalen Hurts run, it could have been a 30-yard run.
Right.
And it reminded me of something that my high school coach used to say to me. Well, every play is designed for a touchdown. Because every play is, in fact, designed for a touchdown. It just doesn't mean it's the right call in that moment.
Exactly.
So that was the one thing I thought. I did think he was very truthful, but there is no way that A.J. Brown was not frustrated that on the final drive against the Arizona Cardinals, or the second to last drive, to go design quarterback run with no pass option, designed quarterback run with no pass option, and then a short screen to your backup running back. He had to be frustrated.
I think you and I have talked about that phrase that Sirianni used, a wise man avoids all extremes. I'm not that wise a man, so let me use this extreme. All right, it's 2nd and 7, Bill. I'm calling a fake punt. Oh, the punter didn't throw it to the 4th wide receiver. Oh, he didn't execute. It's a good play call. Didn't execute. Stupid. To go as conservative as they did against the Cardinals, if you're a competitor, and A.J. Brown, oh, what else did he say, Bill? Oh, I'm A.J. Brown. I live to win. I show up before the sun's out. I don't go home till hours after the sun's down. I live and eat and sleep football, and I love being a competitor. If you really do love all that, then you hate the way that game ended. Not just because of execution, but because of the idea, because of the play call. Because, this will be what works. If I'm A.J. Brown, how do I get 1 target in the second half? Oh, and the target that I have, I think, for 18 yards, and it's the only big play that you have in the second to last possession of the game. You got to be frustrated. Yes, everybody's frustrated, but I don't have an impact on the game, Bill. We don't have impact on the game. The coaches, they have an impact on the game. Whether A.J. Brown wants to talk about how they lace up their shoes or don't to actually go play, about how they play games or don't play games, they just call games. It doesn't matter. They have a huge impact on the game. And 2 design runs. The first one, all right, fine. You could take a big chunk out of a 1st and 20 with a quarterback run from Jalen Hurts. Don't have that big deal. Don't have that much of a problem with it. But when you do it again, you got to throw the football. Yeah, I love, and tomorrow morning, I'm going to have Olivia Reiner from Inquirer.com, not to plug my own show, but Olivia Reiner has asked a couple of great questions. And one of the questions was to Brian Johnson this past offensive coordinator press conference, where she said, did the way the defense was playing, did that change your idea of the way you should call the plays at the end of the game? In essence, you knew the defense was going to give up a touchdown if they had to try to stop the Cardinals. The Cardinals were going to get a touchdown if they got the ball back with any amount of time left. So why not be more aggressive and make sure that you get 7 points out of that? And Brian Johnson's reaction to it was, if I answer this question honestly, the defense is under a whole caravan of buses. It's not even just one bus I'm throwing them under. But it's a great and valid point. You needed 7 points there because your defense wasn't stopping anything. And Jonathan Gannon at the end of that game pantsed Nick Sirianni and said, you think you're going to beat me? All right, here you go. Here's your opportunity. Go ahead and get 7. If I just hold you to a field goal, I win this game. And I have plenty of time to do it. They got the ball back. 7 plays, 70 yards later, they win the football game. And it all goes back to the way the plays were designed. If A.J. Brown, sure, you execute, great. But you're talking about back-to-back running plays by your quarterback and a screen to Kenny Gainwell, a miscommunication in between, horrible blocking that wasn't even set up for the play, and just a bad idea overall. That is not on A.J. Brown. That is not on Kenny Gainwell. That is not on Devontae Smith. That is not on Jalen Hurts. That is on the coaching staff for playing ultra uber conservative at that point in the game when you needed to do the proverbial step on their throat.
Yeah, and I've said that on this show earlier in the week that was what I was most frustrated about at the end of that game is they lack situational awareness, and that's been a problem with this offensive coaching staff all season. And in that situation, you're right. We all knew if they didn't score 7, the way the defense was playing, they weren't going to be able to hold them out of the end zone, and it's exactly what happened. And Jonathan Gannon did look like a genius doing that onside kick. He played.
It was a win-win. It was a win-win.
He played it perfectly. But hey, and one of the things you did mention is A.J. Brown, the targets in the second half of that game. And I went back and looked because I was curious. He had that great stretch of 6 straight games between week 3 and week 8 with 125 or more yards. In those games, he averaged 11 targets a game. You look at the last 5 games, starting with the San Francisco 49ers game, he's averaging 10.4 targets. So it's not as if they're not targeting him as much as they were. So for me, well, what is the difference? And that's where the frustration could lie. It's not that they're not targeting him. It's the play designs are not schemed correctly to get him open. And I've talked about this in the past as well, that the yards after catch are way down this season in relationship to last season. And I really think that comes down to the play design and the schemes not getting your playmakers open in space to give them an opportunity to make plays after they get the ball in their hands.
It's a weird thing when you look at this Eagles offense because most teams have to throw the ball to establish their offense, and the Eagles have to run the ball to establish their offense. Like the Eagles in the second half of this game, they have to run the football. Like you would think they're just trying to kill clock, but they're not. They're trying to get their offense going again. Like perfect example is DeAndre Swift and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, 1 target in the second half. DeAndre Swift had 5 carries in the first half, had 6 on their final possession of the third quarter, first possession of the fourth quarter. So third quarter drive rolled into the fourth quarter, and he had 6 carries on that drive. That's not supposed to be the way it goes. But yet, there the Eagles were. That's I mean, we all know that's their true identity. They just don't go back to it. They don't know thyself. They got to be able to run the football. And then when you do that, things open up huge for A.J. Brown. If they're going for splash plays, they're not going to get them by just throwing the ball down the field. They're going to get that by opening up things. They're going to open up that slant for A.J. Brown, bringing in those linebackers, setting up that play action, being able to hit him in stride like that after you establish the run. One of the most frustrating things, and I want to say it was against might have been against the Seahawks, where they came out running the football and they ran the ball well, 4 straight plays, got a first down. And then they lined up with an empty backfield. And it was like the whole reason you're running the football is so that you could run a play action, you could run an RPO, you could get those defensive backs and linebackers to freeze for a second, maybe the edge rusher as well. And then you were able to hit them over the top for a big gain. Like if you say splash plays are the biggest thing you're going for on offense and not turning the football over, obviously being another one, then that's a setup right there for you. You did a great job of setting it up, and then you did it like you set up someone for a spike and they whiffed on it, and they did a great job of setting themselves up, and then they blew the play call after that.
That's what we've been so frustrated about with this offense is if you look at the final numbers, the stats don't look that much off from what they were last year.
Yeah.
But it's just not passing the eye test. It doesn't seem to have any rhythm. There's no rhyme or reason for some of the things that they do and that they call. But hey, listen, as bad as things may have been, as bad as they are right now, we're getting a playoff game. Regardless of what happens in Week 18, the Philadelphia Eagles are in the playoffs. So first, let me ask you this. You mentioned something earlier in the show when talking about A.J. Brown and what he said, and that this could potentially help this team, help this locker room. Do you think this is going to cause a spark that can get this team going? Is there anything that can get this team right? I don't think it is. I don't think it's going to change the fact that the defense stinks. I don't think it's going to change the fact that the offense has really lacked creativity. But hey, I'm looking for any hope you got for me, Farzy.
Flower power? That's about as best I can do for you, friend. I thought the same thing, and I saw all the people talking about, to the turning point of the season and all that. And I'm like, yeah, this would be great, but they suck right now. If you're going to tell me that this offense all of a sudden is going to be scoring 40 points in the next 2 games, then all right, I feel like your offense can outscore a bad defense. I feel like they can, and by bad defense, I mean the Eagles' bad defense. But yeah, it's not a lot of confidence in that. Even though they're probably going to face the Buccaneers in the first round in Tampa, I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, wow, you watched a 10-1 football team still mathematically have a chance to win the NFC East, but you're talking about a 10-1 football team that's all of a sudden a wild card team. Like, you were a number 1 seed in your conference. Now you're a wild card team. That's not falling by the wayside. That's falling off the boat into shark-infested waters. Like, this is horrifying what we have seen. The only way it gets right, honestly, it's not just getting healthy, and they should certainly get healthy, but Zach Cunningham isn't exactly Lawrence Taylor. The only way it happens is if this offense really starts to click and maintain possession of the football, run the football. If you're Brian Johnson and you're Nick Sirianni, you've already panicked atrociously as an organization by demoting your defensive play caller, taking a guy out of the booth, putting him on the sidelines there with 4 games left to go against inferior talent, I might add. Like, think about this. Sean Desai, when he was the defensive play caller, 6 straight touchdowns against the San Francisco 49ers. It's the 49ers, okay? I get it. But that's still tough to do. That's a lot of consecutive touchdowns. Matt Patricia just allowed 4 straight touchdowns against the Cardinals, all right? So at what point does he get demoted? At what point do you switch things up? The defense is a damn dumpster fire right now. So the only thing you can do right now, if you're at all, like you have one brain cell, one football brain cell in your head, is run the football, and you have to do what everybody else tries to do against you with A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith. He was walking around yesterday, no crutches, no walking boot, and DeAndre Swift himself, a Pro Bowl running back now. You have to run the football. You have to keep other teams' offenses off the field. More importantly, the big headline is you got to keep your own defense off the field. And the only way you're going to do that is 8-minute drives that are 15 plays, and you're punching it in the red zone, and you're not turning the ball over in the red zone. You're not coming up short, waiting, you're just settling for 3 points. You're making plays happen. It's the only way the Eagles have a chance to win a playoff game is if they rely on run plays, long sustained drives, and keeping this defense that looks like it is just out of gas for the last month and a half of the season off the football field. That's the biggest favor and the biggest change they can make to their defense is by making sure they're not on the field for nearly as long as they've been over the last month and a half.
Spot on, Farzy. I think that is the only way they can win. You're exactly right. And maybe the hope I'm getting from all of this is maybe Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson and Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, because we know they're involved, have realized, wow, we really do need to keep this awful defense on the sidelines. Let's run the ball 30 damn times a game. It's the only way they could win. It really is. It's the only way that they could win. But listen, there's still one more regular season game coming up on Sunday. Not against Tommy Cutlets, unfortunately, but against Tyrod Taylor and the New York Giants, a game they could easily lose. Now, they could backdoor their way into an NFC East championship if somehow the Washington Commanders upset the Dallas Cowboys. But regardless of that, you're the head coach, Farzy. You do look like him a little bit, as we've been told several times. Are you playing your starters in Week 18, regardless of what's happening in Dallas, or are you keeping your eyes on that scoreboard?
I can only hope that both the Eagles and the Cowboys are up like 50 points at the end of the first half, but that's obviously not going to happen. I'm looking at it from an Eagles perspective. My starters are playing. They have no rhythm. They have no confidence really right now. I need them to go into the postseason on a high note. They're not going to get in a much lower note than they are right now, unfortunately. That if I can at least get them feeling good, and then maybe, who knows, maybe Washington, maybe they're at least making a game of it, then all of a sudden the Eagles have something to really play for. Imagine the Commanders, which, by the way, a team that beat the Cowboys last year in Week 18. Imagine the Eagles actually going out there on the field, whooping up on the Giants in the first half, still controlling, imagine that in the third quarter, and the Cowboys are losing to the Commanders. That is a perfect storm. That is making yourself feel great right before the postseason, and that's obviously a goal of the Eagles. If it becomes a Cowboys blowout at halftime and the Eagles aren't blowing it out, I'm taking the starters out at that point. I'm going to say, go ahead and get that rest, boys. Enjoy your half day, early dismissal from school, kick your feet up, get in the whirlpool, and we'll see you in Tampa. I don't see that. I don't see that being the way that it plays out. No speech from anybody, head coach, player, quarterback, whoever it might be, is all of a sudden turning things around. I think the Eagles continue their struggles, unfortunately. I do think they beat the Giants, but I don't see the Cowboys losing to the Commanders this time around. The Cowboys, aside from just playing for the NFC East, also have some stat padding to do on the season. CeeDee Lamb is still trying to be the number one wide receiver in the NFL. Tony Pollard's going for a 1,000-yard season. There's Micah Parsons, of course, to add to his sack total. They got more to play for than just the NFC East. The NFC East is still the biggest thing, so I shouldn't say just. But the Eagles are going to be a wild card team after being a number one seed in the NFC just 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. It's amazing how the world turns, my friend.
It really is. See, I think I'm not even worried about that Cowboys game. I think you play your starters. If they're clicking, if the Philadelphia Eagles are clicking and they look great on both sides of the football in the first half, then I would consider maybe resting them for the second half. But we need to get our mojo right, man. And I keep going back to the last game of the year back, forgetting the year now, whatever the perfect season was for the New England Patriots. And you look at that last game of the season, the New York Giants didn't have anything to play for.
Yep.
That game wouldn't have changed their playoff seeding, but they played their starters. Tom Coughlin played his starters the whole game. They played the Patriots tough. They lost, but it gave that team confidence headed into the playoffs, and they went on a magical run to the Super Bowl. So I want to see them get their mojo right this weekend. But last question for you, Farzy, before I let you out the door. You keep mentioning the Bucs. There is a chance it could be the New Orleans Saints or even the Atlanta Falcons if the Bucs were lose to the dreadful Carolina Panthers. But who would you like to play? If you had your choice, would you take the Saints, the Falcons, or the Bucs?
Saints, Falcons, or Bucs. Play on turf. Everyone hates turf nowadays. I'd probably take Tampa. You have confidence from the way you handled them, and granted, it was a long time ago. Week 3 of this season? But you have confidence. It's your only. You realize it's your only one of your 2 double-digit wins this season were against the Bucs and the Dolphins. They only had 2 double-digit wins this season. They had 6 such wins a year ago. That's insane to me. But yeah, I think the Bucs would be the better matchup for the Eagles. After that, I'd probably go with the Saints. But yeah, I like the idea of the Eagles going into Tampa and trying to handle the business down there. I would take the Bucs over that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaning Bucs as well, I think. So, guys, you could check out Farzy every single morning from 6 to 7 right here on the JAKIB Sports Network on the Farzy Show. Also, obviously, it stays up on YouTube, so if you're not up at 6 a.m., you can check it out. But not from 10 to 11.
No, don't you dare.
Sports Power Hour.
Yeah.
But any other time. And you could also check out Farzy and me on the JAKIB Sports Eagles game day shows down at Ocean Casino right here on JAKIB Sports. We do pregame, halftime, postgame, all-star crew. There's also Seth Joyner on the show if you care about Seth.
What did that guy ever do? You know what I'm saying? No, he didn't play at Gettysburg. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
You know what else he didn't do? He didn't play freshman year at Archbishop Wood High School in 2001. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. So if you guys were in the green room, you'd see me and Farzy. We take out the whiteboard and we start showing Seth,
exactly
how to run defenses and things like that.
Exactly. No, Seth, you want soft zone? The Eagles know what they're doing. Kidding.
Yeah. No, Seth is great. We have the luxury of watching the game with him and Mike Missinelli, Kayla Santiago. So we get to have some fun in the green room and then obviously with you guys on the game day shows. But Farzy, I appreciate you, my friend. I will see you Sunday, 4:25 game. So we'll be down at Ocean in the afternoon. Won't get home too late, which is good.
Yeah, fortunately. It'll be still an AM bedtime, which sucks. But whatever, it is what it is.
Is what it is. Farzy, I appreciate you, man.
Back at you, brother. See you on Sunday.
Have a good one. Sunday. My man, Mark Farzetta. Love our Thursdays with Farzy. Always does a good job. But, yeah, make sure you check out his show. He gets up early. I see you guys talking in the chat about his espressos. He gets up early, does a great show from 6 to 7. Obviously, you could check that out all day. I think it also gets uploaded to all the podcast platforms as well. So another thing I want to talk about, we spent a lot of time on this A.J. Brown press conference. I'm ready to move on. I know you guys are ready to move on as well. But the Pro Bowl game rosters have been announced. Anyone that still cares about the Pro Bowl Well, the Pro Bowl game rosters were revealed, and the Philadelphia Eagles had 6 players named, but a few people were snubbed, if you ask me. But I'm waiting for the All-Pro list. That's what I said. I like the All-Pro, first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro. That's usually a good indicator of who the best players are in the NFL. But you look at the Pro Bowlers, Jason Kelce, not a surprise, at center. Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, A.J. Brown, and DeAndre Swift on that offense. And on the defensive side of the ball, only one player, Hassan Reddick. And before we get to the alternates, this is what I find so frustrating about this Philadelphia Eagles offense. Listen to the positions of who their Pro Bowlers are. Jason Kelce, offensive lineman. Lane Johnson, offensive lineman. Landon Dickerson, offensive lineman. DeAndre Swift, running back. And A.J. Brown, wide receiver. But how this team shouldn't see that their identity is to run the football behind an offensive line where 3 of your 5 starters are Pro Bowlers. And check this, the other 2 were named alternates. This team needs to run the football to win football games. Your defense isn't good enough. Win the time of possession battle. It's our only chance to do anything this season. So I gave you guys the 6 starters, and here are the alternates. Jalen Hurts, Jake Elliott, Darius Slay, Britton Covey, Josh Sweat, Jordan Mailata, Jalen Carter, Dallas Goedert, and Cam Jurgens. So when I look at this list, the obvious snub, if you want to call it that, would be Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I know things haven't been great over the last couple of weeks, but Jalen Hurts doesn't make the Pro Bowl. We're talking about a guy who only a few weeks ago was the odds-on favorite to be the MVP of the entire NFL. He doesn't even get named a Pro Bowler. And I'm okay with the 2 of the 3 quarterbacks. Brock Purdy is your starter. Dak Prescott is also a Pro Bowler. But they named 3 quarterbacks. And the 3rd quarterback wasn't Jalen Hurts. It was Matthew Stafford. That one surprises me. Because if you look at the numbers between Stafford and Hurts, I don't see how you could go with Stafford. Stafford has a 9-6 record this season. Hurts is 11-5. Stafford's thrown for 3,900 yards. Hurts 3,800 yards. Stafford has 24 touchdown passes. Hurts has 23. But when you factor in the rushing yards, 600 rushing yards for Jalen Hurts compared to only 65 for Matt Stafford, and 0 rushing touchdowns for Stafford compared to 15 rushing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. You're talking about 38 touchdowns for Hurts compared to 24 touchdowns for Matt Stafford. Passing yards are pretty similar. Hurts has a better record. That one surprises me. I don't care that much about the Pro Bowl, but for me, to see Matt Stafford selected over Jalen Hurts in the Pro Bowl, I thought that was a snub. But here's the rest of the roster, guys, if you didn't see it. Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Matt Stafford are your quarterbacks. Christian McCaffrey, obviously your starting running back. DeAndre Swift, Kyren Williams from the Los Angeles Rams. You got CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, and Puka Nacua. What a rookie season he's having are your wide receivers. Tight ends, George Kittle and Sam Laporta from the Lions. And then along that offensive line, you have Trent Williams, Lane Johnson, and Sewell from the Detroit Lions. Zach Martin, Chris Lindstrom, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelce, Frank Ragnow. And then defense, Nick Bosa, Montez Sweat, Aiden Hutchinson, Aaron Donald, Dexter Lawrence. This one stings. Javon Hargrave makes the Pro Bowl. But we knew how good Hargrave was. I still think the 49ers gave him too much money and too many years, but he's obviously had a great season in San Francisco. Outside linebackers, Micah Parsons, Daniel Hunter, and Hassan Reddick. Linebackers, Fred Warner, Bobby Wagner. And then the secondary is Deron Bland, Travarius Ward in San Francisco, Jalen Johnson, and Devin Witherspoon the rookie in Seattle, free safety Jesse Bates, strong safety Budda Baker, and Julian Love. And you look at the kickers, a lot of people were surprised that Jake Elliott didn't get it, but it was hard not to give the place kicker to Brandon Aubrey in Dallas, who's been unbelievable in his rookie season. Absolutely unbelievable. But that's the NFC roster. You know, the crazy thing is you look at the AFC roster, and I won't go through all of it, but what a luxury. We talk about Howie Roseman, how he completely ignores the linebacker position. And you look at the two starting linebackers for the AFC Pro Bowl, and both of them are on the Baltimore Ravens. Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. How nice would that be? And you wonder why the Ravens win as many games as they do. They have studs in the middle of their defense. But guys, appreciate all of you. Hit that like button for me. Love spending this hour with my Power Hour crew. Like we end every Power Hour with a little Today in Sports History. So this one is going all the way back to January 4th, 1887. Thomas Stevens became the first man to bicycle around the world. Started in San Francisco in April of 1884. It took him almost 3 years. He returned January 4th, 1887, after biking around the world. Pretty cool accomplishment, I guess. But for me, I think, like, how the hell do you have a job or a life where you could decide, you know what, for the next 3 years, I'm not going to do anything but try to bicycle around the world? And I see Drew Parker saying, how did he bicycle over the ocean? So apparently he would bicycle where he could, and then you would take the bike, jump on a ship or a train or whatever it may be, and then have to go there. So no idea how he did it, but he's famous for doing it. But how you could just drop everything and say, you know what, family, job, I'm going to bicycle around the world for the next 3 years. I'll see you. I guess that's cool. But that's our Today in Sports History. Guys, appreciate you. Make sure you're following me on all your social media platforms. Check me out on Instagram and Twitter. Give me a like, engage. And I will be back here tomorrow on the Philly Sports Power Hour, 10 o'clock, and we will look forward. It's crazy. It's almost like we're forgetting there's a game on Sunday with all the other stuff that's going on. But we'll start to break down the matchups between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants Sunday, 4:25. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And as always, go Birds.
Go for the poles and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.